And the Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Now Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Amen, I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or the smallest part of a letter will pass from the law until everything has taken place. Therefore, whoever breaks one of these, the least of the commandments, and teaches others to do so, will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever obeys and teaches these commandments will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now let me tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you're not going to enter the kingdom of heaven." Now you've heard it said that to your ancestors, you shall not kill, and whoever kills will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, whoever is angry with brother or sister is liable to judgment. Whoever says to his sister or brother, "Rakach," will be answerable to the Sanhedrin. Whoever says, "You fool," will be liable to the fire of Gehenna. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there you recall that your sister or brother has anything against you, leave your gift at the altar, go first, be reconciled with them, and then come offer your gift. Settle with your opponent quickly while on the way to court. Otherwise, your opponent will hand you over to the judge will hand you over to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Amen, I say to you, you will not be released until you have paid the last penny. Now you've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out, throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than to have your whole body thrown into Gehenna. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off, throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than to have your whole body go into Gehenna. Now it was said, whoever divorces his wife must give her a bill of divorce. But I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, unless the marriage is unlawful, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard it said to your ancestors, do not take a false oath, but make good to the Lord all that you vow. But I say to you, do not swear at all, not by heaven, for it is God's throne, not by earth, for it is his footstool, not by Jerusalem, for it is his city, the city of the great king. Do not swear by your head, for you cannot make a single hair white or black. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Anything else is from the evil one. The Gospel of the Lord. Amen. Please be seated. Don't think I've come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have not come to abolish the law. And we look at Jesus and we go, well, that's what you say, but we also look at what you do, and what you do doesn't match with what you say. You're saying follow the law, follow the jot and the tittle of the law, but every time we look at you, what are you doing? You're curing on the Sabbath, which is illegal, unlawful. Makes us wondering what you're doing from Sunday to Friday, because you're always waiting till Saturday to do your work. Your disciples are tearing the grain off the sheaves, and they are not allowed to do that. You don't wash your hands before you eat. The law says you're supposed to do that. So which is it? Are you in favor of the law, or are you against the law? And the answer is yes. Oh God, he is very much in favor of the law, but there's also something that goes beyond the law, to a whole nother level. And that's where he wants to take us today. It's a whole nother place. You start with the law. Why is law so important? It really is. Because law brings order out of chaos. If there are no laws, if there are no traffic laws, if there are no laws of the land, we're going to live in some kind of a chaotic society. So somewhere along the line, there have to be some rules by which we are called to live. And we are not to step out of those boundaries. If we're going to play the game of life, well, then there are some boundaries that you play. If you step out of bounds, well, then you're out of the game. And of course, there are always consequences to breaking the law. And we got to start there. This is basically the starting place. Matter of fact, Paul is always in this tension between the law and grace. Paul says, yeah, you got to have the law. It's the babysitter. And the babysitter says, no, you can't go out to play right now. It's too dangerous to go out in the street. So Paul is saying, no, you got to have there, but there's something more. And of course, Paul's picking this up from Jesus, from what he's trying to teach us today. You got to know the basics. If you're going to color, you got to color within the lines. If you're going to be you look at any great jazz musician, and what you're going to find is someone who is skilled in the very basics of every arpeggio, of transposition of one line of music to the next. This person has studied the basics. Now, once you got the basics, once you got the law, now you can improvise. You can play 5 octaves above the scale. You can do whatever you want to do, but you've got to have it down first. Now, does Jesus break the law? No. I've not come to abolish the law. I've come to fulfill it. He doesn't break the law. He transcends the law. There's something higher. There's something deeper. There's something more profound than the law. The law is to get us started. The law is to keep us in order. But there is a higher law, if you will, and that's, of course, the law of love, the law of mercy, the law of forgiveness, and that's basically what he's teaching today. He's going to be giving us a whole bunch of advice on a whole bunch of topics, and some of them are really easy to hear, and some of them are really hard to hear. They just kind of grate against us. But what he's trying to do is to tell us we've got to go beyond what the Pharisees are teaching you. Okay? Because the Pharisees are what? They're the law and order people. You follow the law, you keep the law will keep you. That's what they teach you. But the trouble is they use the law, they weaponize it. That's a big popular word today. Everybody is weaponizing everything. But they weaponize the law to keep themselves in control and keep you under their thumb. Jesus wants us liberated from that. He's going to give us a whole bunch of teachings. The Dalai Lama once said, you gotta know the law really, really well in order to break it properly. Now that's pretty much what Jesus is doing. You know, Picasso, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the early Picasso paintings. I mean, when he was like about 17, 18 years old. He looks like a Dutch master. I mean, they are so realistic. It is so disciplined. It is so perfect that once he got that down, he was able then to literally transcend into a whole new art form and to speak at a whole different and profound level if we can understand what he was trying to teach us and show us through his art. But you start with the basics. You got the basics down. Now let me tell you what's really going on. Because you've heard, the ancestors have told you. You've heard this before, okay? And now this charismatic authority figure is going to say, but I say. Okay? You know the law. Here's the law. But I say. What does he say? Well, you've heard, you shall not kill, you shall not murder. But I say, he's going to take it to a whole different level. But I say, don't even get angry with your brother or sister. Don't even call them rakah. I looked up rakah. You know what rakah means? It means empty of head in Aramaic. Airhead is what it means. So don't call anybody an airhead. That doesn't sound so terrible. I mean, we all know airheads. I've been an airhead myself from time to time. What he's saying is that at that point, you're murdering their spirits. You're murdering their respect. You're calling them a basket of deplorables. You've done great damage just with your mouth. So be very careful with what you're saying, because words do make a difference when you're angry with your brother or sister. And so what you're doing is you're murdering their spirit. They say the number one cause of violence in jail, number one, what do you think it is? Disrespect. When someone feels disrespected, they become violent. Of course, what does the word respect mean? It means to look again. We look at somebody and we say, oh, they're just a cheap criminal. Look again. Respect. What do you see? Well, this is a daughter and son of God. And I'm called to respect them. And at that point, I don't push them down. That's retributive justice. I am lifting them up. That's called restorative justice. Here's where Jesus wants us to go. Tough? Yeah. Whole new level. It's a whole new level. If you're going to go to the altar and you remember that you've got something against your brother or sister, leave your gift at the altar. Don't even bring it to God. What he's saying is, don't tell me you love me if you hate your brother or sister. Don't do that. That's duplicitous. That's not true. So if you're going to bring me a gift and you remember that you've got some problem, go back to your brother or sister. Make up with them. Now bring your gift to me. I'll take it. If you don't, what's going to happen is the consequences of your hardness of heart are going to catch up with you, and then he goes through this whole thing of being thrown into until the last penny is paid. Advice. Not easy to hear, but really, really important. You have heard, you shall not commit adultery. Somebody once says that, do infants have as much fun in infancy as adults have in adultery? Well, no. That's a physical act. That's a physical act. That's crossing a boundary, that's crossing a border, and that's dangerous. But he says, but I say, you don't have to physically act, you can do that in your heart. You can do it with lust. You remember the famous interview that Jimmy Carter had when he was running, and they asked him, do you ever commit adultery? And he quoted this, he says, I've done it in my heart. They laughed him to scorn, which was really so sad, because he was being as honest as he knew how to be at that point. Now, what this doesn't say, because I hear this so often, is that you can't appreciate beauty. You see a beautiful person, you are certainly legally allowed to say, that's beautiful. That's God's beautiful creation. It is when you lust after it, that you want to control it, that you want to, that's when we're going a bridge too far, when we're stepping over the line. Great art, and a beautiful person is great art, has a symbiosis relationship between themselves and myself, never calling me to any kind of action in my mind or in my body or anything else. I can just appreciate it for what it is. That's a contemplation. That's looking at reality, with long, loving look. There's nothing sinful about that. But what he's talking about is every time you want to control, every time you want to control. And then he gives this whole diatribe. He says, if your hand is the cause of your sin, cut it off. If your eye is the cause of your sin, pluck it out. May I make a categorical statement about this? Don't take it literally. All right? The last one to take it literally was the early theologian Origen, who went up to heaven singing soprano. Don't take it literally. He's saying, watch what you're doing. Watch what you're doing. And then he comes to the toughest of all of the teachings. And this is a teaching about something that has affected probably almost, I would almost say, in some way everybody in this room, one way or another, and that's the teaching on divorce. In some way or another, everybody has been touched, either by, in my own family included, everybody's been touched by this desire for a relationship that failed. It failed. And nobody has ever walked down the aisle thinking that I'm going to get a divorce if this doesn't work. No. Everybody who makes their vows, they really make their vows. But we fail. We are human beings. What Jesus is talking about here more than anything else is the ideal. Is the ideal. Part of our problem is that we've taken this so literally that we can forgive any sin except for this one. That's what our Holy Father Francis has tried to rectify. And he says, whoa. He says, the Eucharist is not for the perfect. The Eucharist is for those who are in need of healing. And then he broadened the whole spectrum for those who have gone through divorce and remarriage. and still love the Lord and want to get back to the Lord. That's been an incredible, wonderful progress here. But it's one that we have wrestled with for 2,000 years, and we'll probably continue to wrestle with it. He is stating an ideal that we are all called to live, knowing that humanly, we all fall short of the mark. All have sinned. And then he finally says, and I want to finish with this because I think it's the most important part of all, what the greatest difficulty, I think, or maybe even sin in our modern world today is. He says, don't start swearing, by heaven or by earth or by Jerusalem or by anything. Don't even take an oath. I believe that the sin that's causing such polarization today and such anger and such hatred, and I think it's probably the number one sin that I see all the time, is mendacity. Not being truthful, deceiving, lying. We've come to the point now where we don't know real news from fake news. We've come to the point now where we are so confused we don't know what is a truth and what has been manipulated in such a way to make us believe that it's true when it's not. This is so dangerous. I tell little children who always confess I've been lying, I'm going, it's okay for a little kid to lie, because little kids lie to get out of trouble or to make themselves feel important. I says, you can be a little kid who lies, but there comes a point when you got to grow up. And the most dangerous people in the world are adults who lie. Scott Peck called them the people of the lie. We can't afford to be that. That's not what Jesus is calling us to. He says, say yes when you mean yes, and no when you mean no. Anything else is from the evil one.